The Rebels to a bowl game. Producer Chris Magnum Chapman is here. Mags is also a big part of Vegas Golden Knights Radio and the all-new Raider Nation Radio, our sister station, 920 AM. Check them out. And also, I guess, Raider Games, 92.3 FM on Comp also, so pretty cool. And the guy responding to all of today's social media questions and comments, our intern and social media director. He's back from self-quarantine.
His eyes look better, too.
They do.
He doesn't look like a puffer fish.
No, you can't have the only intern in the country with his own theme song and his eyes.
Yeah,
looking,
what are you doing with your eyes swollen?
Yeah, seriously.
Wash your pillows, dude.
Funny you mention, wow. Funny you mention pillowfish, because we've got the fishing show on, and I've actually eaten puffer fish before.
Really?
Fugu, yeah.
Are they like
very
poisonous?
well?
They are.
They
Yes.
have to be. There's a very special way to prepare them, and only a few cooks or chefs are trained
Like
to do that.
risky enough, yeah.
And if you do it wrong, like one thing goes wrong or something, it's the end of your life.
Well, you know what's funny? The first time I ate it, I was in Osaka, Japan.
What does it taste like?
It's good. Your mouth goes numb for about 10 minutes.
Did you panic and think that the chef cooked it wrong?
No. You know what's funny? Because I asked the waiter, I said, listen, I obviously I'm not from here.
Yeah.
I said, I've never eaten this before. What are the chances of dying? He goes, in Japan, he goes, really, 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 really small. He said only about 5 people a year die from fugu. He says, and almost none of them
What if like
are in
5
Japan.
people a year died from like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Like, do you
I'm
think
sure
people
they
would
do.
still eat it?
I'm sure they do.
I think peanut people are allergic to peanuts. I bet they do.
Well, I guess
that's
I
one of
never
the
thought
biggest,
about it like that.
One of the nastiest
The
allergies in
ever. Yeah,
existence.
like every
But-
daycare on earth is like peanut-free zones.
But
now.
apparently, like the chef, if he has to go to school for like 5 years to learn how to do it.
Jeez.
And if he does it wrong and someone dies, this is in Japan. Now the waiter told me most people who die are not in Japan.
Do they
He said,
get caned?
well, they get sentenced to jail. They go to jail if someone dies from it
And
in
probably
Japan.
caned as well.
Well, the big thing over there is suicide if you screw up really bad at work. So,
Harry Carey?
Harry Carey, yeah.
Just jump out of the window.
Harry
Yeah.
Carey, and we're not talking about the famous Cubs announcer
Yeah.
either, man. The big knives.
Huge knives.
Huge knives. And
Someone got a text.
Yeah, that was an aggressive text
that
message
was
there.
a serious text
That's
message.
somebody's wife. Where
Hey,
are
listen,
you?
I'm going to tell you this also. The show is also streaming on the LV Sports Network, and if you're brave, you can see us on Facebook Live. The page is called Outaline. That's Outtaline. You can also follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at Outaline on Fox LV. That's at Outaline Fox LV. And since the show is live, your calls are welcome. The Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studio line, 702-876-1340. Use it.
Hi, this is Bubby, and it's time for What's on Tap.
Hawks are still in with 3, with 2, play on the near boards. It's lifted ahead. The horn sounds. Hockey game over. Vegas wins 2-1, and the Golden Knights 1 win away from a series victory.
Yeah, What's on Tap, sponsored by title sponsor Residential Bancorp. Whether purchasing a new home or refinancing the home you already own, Residential Bancorp is the company to turn to for all of your home financing needs. Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time. On tap, well, as you just heard, the Vegas Golden Knights are 1 win away from advancing to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs in the bubble. And they should do it, man. They play again tonight against the Chicago Blackhawks. We'll talk all about that in a little bit. The NBA playoff seedings are now set, and the games that count start Tuesday. And we'll find out about a big series. And we might not have thought the 1-8 series was too big. If you don't think that, maybe you haven't been watching the Portland Trailblazers in the bubble in Orlando. Damian Lillard out of his mind. C.J. McCollum. I mean, that is a team that you better be careful of. Even Carmelo Anthony still playing some ball up there in Portland. And the Lakers are going to have their hands full a little bit because without Beal, I don't know how they cover Damian Lillard. I mean, Caruso, we'll talk about it a little bit. I'm sure Caleb's got his opinions on the L.A. Lakers and what they're going to do up there in the bubble. As one team starts to play again, another Major League Baseball team has games postponed due to COVID-19. And how about, I think it's 54 games in 40-some-odd days that the St. Louis Cardinals have to play, which is just absolutely unbelievable.
I know they played yesterday. I think they played a doubleheader.
7-inning doubleheaders.
But they hadn't played since July 29th.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, now what? What happens if teams that they have to play have games canceled? Like I thought they had like minor leaguers in the system that they had.
You have to plug in or something. I mean,
like,
it really is.
It just shows what a joke Major League Baseball was trying to force this back. I mean, they should have just waved the white flag.
Seriously.
I mean, a 60-game season. Who cares who wins the World Series? I mean, it's great for television, but the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, well,
is it really that like
television revenue, Chris? That's what it's all about, and they need the money. And speaking of revenue, how about college football? To be or not to be? That's the question. And last week I said the other two big conferences were going to follow the Mid-American Conference. I got a little bit of flack in here, but hey, I'll take credit for being right. Both the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are now officially done, finito for.
However, Big 12 says they're doing it.
They do, but in the spring or
Big 12
Big 12, ACC, and the SEC are all saying they're doing it. We'll talk about that in a little bit though, because I've got all the teams, the schools, and one conference still undecided. But out of 10 conferences, which we'll talk about, 4 are definitely not playing.
You know who
and
else
one is
canceled
on
their
the
season?
fence.
Conference Bobby Houck is in.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, so
well,
Bobby can't go.
Caleb had a wake.
5-7.
Caleb had a wake at his house on Saturday for that. Listen, the Raiders are in training camp in Henderson, and one of the greatest of all time UFC careers came to an end last night. We definitely should take note of that. Daniel Cormier, just truly one of the greatest champions ever, and into his 40s, really put on a hell of a fight. Got the tar beat out of him, but he also delivered some blows and even maybe won 2 rounds out of the 5. One judge at least had that going. We'll talk about that as well. That is what's on tap if you're looking to buy a home or refinance the home you currently own. Choose a company you can trust. Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time.
Tuck with Brown and Carrier. Tuck joins the rush with Brown, comes in 2-on-1 with Schmidt. Schmidt back for Tuck, he shoots it, rebound, score! It is Patrick Brown, 2-0 Golden Knights.
Hockey players, as you know, are warriors. They don't give up. They come to play every game.
It's time for Nightcap, a cupful of the Vegas Golden Knights. From highlights to interviews to special events, the puck starts here.
Yeah, the puck started in the bubble not too long ago, and it continues with the Vegas Golden Knights undefeated to this point in the bubble. They've played some close games. They played an overtime game, but this team just flat out wins. Last night, I think the first night, Chris, they didn't score in the third period.
Yeah, it's the first game where they've actually been outscored in the third period because they gave up the 1 goal. They're still, I think, +9 for the playoffs in the third period.
Yeah,
and
best
overtime.
Best in the NHL, and really cool to see this team handling business against the Chicago Blackhawks. And Patrick Brown, you just heard, scored his first goal with the Vegas Golden Knights. And Chris didn't know, but before the show, I told you from my hometown, Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. He played at Cranbrook, and as Chris alluded to in the movie 8 Mile, Eminem accuses his rapping counterpart of growing up and going to Cranbrook. Well, that's where Patrick Brown went to school. His father, Doug, playing for the Red Wings, and ended up reestablishing himself in the state of Michigan and staying there. And pretty cool to see this kid, an undrafted free agent, I think with the Carolina Hurricanes initially, and came to the Vegas Golden Knights. And I mean, Chris, how about first shot, first goal? You got to love that.
Yeah, Clarence had some real good parents, but
right.
Clarence's parents had a really nice marriage.
Yes,
they did. Okay, let me tell you, Cranbrook is beautiful. Their hockey jerseys are like NHL jerseys. I mean, they spend a lot of money.
So Papa Doc was classmates with Patrick Brown.
That's it.
But yeah, by the way, Papa Doc went on to be in a couple of Marvel movies, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he did.
Was he wasn't War Machine, that was Don Cheadle, but
Right.
I think he was with those guys.
He was
part of that crew. Maybe, yeah.
It worked out for him.
Yeah, he got dissed by Eminem and embarrassed from, Mekhi Phifer humiliated him. So
with fake dreads.
Whatever happened to Mekhi Phifer, by the way?
He fell off.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think that's I'm thinking of somebody else. He was in like Netflix series and stuff. I don't know.
So Clarence and Patrick Brown, high school classmates. But yeah, I mean, look, I said last night I was on with our friend Jose Volante on what is it, Straight Bet Sports?
Yep.
And he asked me, and I said straight up, look, the crazy thing is they're undefeated in the bubble. I don't think they've played their best hockey yet. I mean, that's the scary thing. They are. Philadelphia got blasted by Montreal the other day, but that's Philadelphia was the only team that I said right now had been playing better or as good as the Golden Knights. They got blasted by Montreal the other day, but I mean it's scary because there's moments in the game where Vegas looks like
they're
flat.
on their heels.
Yeah,
and
there was for a lot of the game last night, right? And without Marc-Andre Fleury, they probably lose. I mean, that's not to say that they would have lost the game with Robin Lehner in net, but if Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't on his game last night, they would have lost.
Oh, there's no doubt. And and it was really nice to see Karlsson get that shorthanded goal early on.
What a backhand. My goodness.
And what a great pass. I mean, Mark Stone, again, is just the wherewithal of this guy. Picks the pocket and makes the perfect pass to Karlsson. And Karlsson just a laser backhand up into the upper corner over his shoulder. But
yeah, that was I have a lot of confidence.
That was really going to just propel the Golden Knights to really take this game in. And then they get a power play right after that, and they don't take advantage of that. And really, Chicago played them very well. You couldn't ask much more.
The Blackhawks have played really well in the series.
They have.
They played really well in the bubble in general.
Yeah,
starting with Edmonton.
Yeah, exactly.
They played really well so
You're
far.
right. They shouldn't even be here.
But game 2, they could have won the game in overtime. They hit a crossbar. They hit some iron. Otherwise, Vegas is. And then Patrick Kane misses the open net last night. I mean, he makes that 99 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
And the one time he misses it comes in game 3. Otherwise, Golden Knights could have been. Chicago is I kind of expected the Golden Knights to win. I think I said in 5. I'll be honest. Chicago, there's a bright future there.
Oh, no, there is. They've got a lot of good young talent.
DeBrincat,
They
Kubalik,
really do. Yep.
Kirby Doc.
They really do. And they're getting schooled by some great old
And the thing
talent.
is, this is only going to help them, but no fear in that team.
No, and it's a really good first-round test for the Golden Knights, which I thought wasn't going to be, turned out to be a really good test for them going forward. But this is really sound to see this team come together the way they have again, to go undefeated in the bubble, and to really see the emergence. And I think a lot of people, the world right now, especially with them in a bubble and in a microscope on the NHL, unlike before. You are really seeing the emergence, and I think the hockey world is seeing the emergence of Shea Theodore. This guy is, without question, one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League. And just the upside of looking at a guy in his very early 20s, how good he is going to be for a long time. I mean, he doesn't have the size of maybe a Hedman that you see is probably the best defensive player in the NHL right now at 6'7". He plays like he's 5'9". But other than a guy like him, who's better than Shea Theodore?
Yeah, I mean, Shea Theodore is really, really good. I mean, the reality is this team, they have a lot of individual talent, but collectively, the depth is I mean, Pete DeBoer has a luxury, and he takes advantage of it. He starts his 4th line. How many coaches in a Game 3 of the Stanley Cup playoffs will start their 4th line? Probably not a lot.
It's a really smart move, too, because with Carrier and Reeves on that 4th line, you start with intimidation right off the get-go, and you establish physical presence. And another guy, you talk about guys that have shown improvement over the past couple of years. What about the upside of William Carrier, who just keeps getting better? A guy that can mix it up with just about anybody in the NHL. One of the few guys that would fight Ryan Reeves, and they play on the same team, and yet also a guy that could put the puck in the net. He reminds me of an old friend of mine, Bob Probert, a little bit, except Probert, I think, would have kicked Carrier's ass. Probert was one of the toughest guys I ever saw. But as far as the skill set of being able to play 2 ways and be able to fight and be able to score goals, Carrier really is a nice little package we have down there on the 4th line.
Yeah, I mean, Will Carrier, and the team rewarded him during the pause. He got a contract extension, so he's not going anywhere for a while. He's a kid they took from Buffalo, had some injury issues his first few years, but I want to say the offseason. It seems like it was so long ago. Not the pause, the offseason between being eliminated by San Jose and starting the season in October. He got bigger, he got faster, he got stronger, and you can see it in his game. I mean, early on in the season, you could see how much faster and stronger he was. If Will Carrier can find a way to put it together and start putting pucks in the net
on a consistent basis, he's going to be a really, really good NHL hockey player. He's never going to be an all-star, but that's asking a lot, right? Not a lot of guys are all-stars.
No.
He's a really good player. He excels on the 4th line, but I feel like
I mentioned the depth. He's a guy who can move up and play on the third line if you needed him to.
For sure.
Alex Tuck, a guy who's had a really successful, postseason so far. He's a guy, he has top 6 talent.
No, there is. You see skill sets, Chris. One of the things last night, and I pointed this out when it happened during the game, is a guy like Carrier that, you look at him as a more of a physical talent. And we're seeing him better and better with the skill set. But he had a wraparound attempt last night that you have got to be very talented to be able to get the puck and wrap it around. Those are what you see the best players in hockey do. And he did it yesterday as good as anybody. He almost scored on it.
Well,
and that's impressive.
It's funny. You also mentioned the young talent in Shea Theodore. The player I've been really impressed with is Zach Whitecloud.
Oh, my God.
Right? He gets a call in February, and you can see the growth between February and last night.
Yeah,
he's on the penalty kill last night.
Nick Watt, too.
But Whitecloud blocks a shot, and you could tell he's hurt. End of the second period. You could tell he's hurt. And Stone's telling him to go to the bench, and he's waving. He's like, no, I'm staying on the ice. I mean, that's
impressive.
That's impressive. Yeah. He's a young guy, and everything I've heard about him is it just takes a little bit of time for him to get going. But once he does, he's a late bloomer, I guess is probably the word.
Once they find the switch for that motor to keep it on all the time.
Yeah, I mean, he's emerged as a integral part of this team. I mean, he's killing penalties. Yeah. He scored a huge goal in the St. Louis game.
There's no question.
What a time to score your first career NHL goal than in a round robin game against the St. Louis Blues. I mean, the defending Cup champs, who by the way look awful.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're done, but good chance they're not winning that series against Vancouver, which is good and bad for Vegas, I guess. But man, Whitecloud has been phenomenal. And his personality is starting to come out of the shell a little bit too. Talking to the media, just some of the,
as he gains confidence, I think that happens with all players.
He's a good kid. He's a really good kid, and he's got a tremendous upside.
Well, we talk about all the talent and the depth of this, and I want to ask you, obviously it's an overblown story, but it's still very pertinent, and now especially with Marc-Andre getting the start in net yesterday, looking really good, Chris. The one goal he did let in was not a good goal. But other than that, Fleury made some great saves, and it's at one point, as you mentioned, he kept him in the game. I'm going to ask you straight up, goalie controversy or goalie competition, or is that the same thing?
No, it's not the same thing. I mean, competition, there's no controversy.
No, yeah. And that's what I was going to say, maybe it would become a controversy if they weren't winning. And that's the interesting thing about it, because they are undefeated in the bubble right now. There's no controversy, but let there be a couple losses in there. The critics would all come after the board and say, "What are you doing? Like, your goalie controversy is causing this and causing this."
But bring Nick Cherry back.
Right?
Yeah, pick a guy. Pick a guy.
Yeah, pick a guy would be the motto. But that's the thing. But when you win, there's no controversy. It's all just, it's a part of his plan. His plan's working out. We don't question it. But as soon as you start losing, that's going to be the first thing people get. This is the easiest target for people to say, like, well, it's because of the goalie situation. That's why you're losing.
What about tonight? Do you put Leonard back in net, or do you go back-to-back with Fleury?
I put Leonard in because I feel like he's your number one. And I feel like Fleury is your 1A or 1B, however you want to say it. They're both really, really good goalies. And every team in the league would kill to have
either one of them.
Either one of those goalies, especially this time of year. I mean, you look at Boston, and I said last night on the show with Jose, I said, they were probably the only team that could match Vegas in terms of a 1 and a 1A. Maybe Colorado, because Francouz has been really good for them, but I don't trust Grubauer or Francouz in the playoffs. I trusted Yaroslav Halak, and I trusted Tuukka Rask. Well, now they're down to 1 because Tuukka Rask has gone home. So Vegas is in the enviable position.
Though, the thing is about
Halak is a really good goal.
People forget a couple years ago, Chris, he nearly took Montreal to the finals. Yeah. They were, one win away from going to the Stanley Cup finals?
So, yeah.
I mean, he played a hell of a series, so this is a guy that can play, but he is in his mid-30s, and I'm sorry, he's not Tuukka Rask.
No, he's not Tuukka Rask. And I feel like that will catch up to Boston at some point, the fact that they don't have Tuukka Rask.
Yeah. I think so, too.
It should not catch up to Vegas.
Well, also not having Pasternak, too. I mean, you're talking about a team.
A huge elite goal scorer.
Oh, my God. I mean, the thing is Charlie Coyle really has stepped up in the series and stepped up for Boston so far, but he can't do it alone.
Well, I feel like anytime you have Patrice Bergeron on the ice, you've got a chance because he's such a good player. But, I mean, maybe the best two-way forward of all time.
But you still need a guy like Charlie Coyle to step up now.
Yeah, and McAvoy's really good. I mean, defensively, they're good. But, I mean, Chara, he's a beast.
Yeah.
But no team in the playoffs right now has.
When you lose, the bottom line is Tuukka Rask had the best goals against average in the National Hockey League this year, and definitely a finalist for the Vezina Trophy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just have this guy say, "I'm opting out of the season. See you later." Do it at the beginning. Don't do it to him a couple hours before the middle of a playoff series. That's the problem I had.
No,
with
you
it.
do it whenever you want. Brian.
Yeah,
you do whatever you got to do.
Yeah. I mean, he has a
God,
newborn at home.
Yeah.
He's got 2 kids, and his teammates are supportive, and that's the thing. You know, hockey players are family. You know, you go in that Golden Knights locker room, and I'm sure there's personalities, just like in any family. There's personalities that don't.
Let me tell you, if today all of a sudden we hear Leonard and Fleury both decided to opt out of the rest of the season.
Well, that's different. It's both. It's just we're not talking about both guys. I mean, who's the next goalie up? Like that. So that's different. We'd be hurt about it, but if they had a legit reason, we'd understand.
I mean, I feel like
get out of here. Go take care of your kids.
It's a very.
I'm sorry. It's like take care of your kids at the beginning. Why do it now? Do it
because they're
still
kids.
Because,
I mean, like 3 months later, your kid's still a kid, and situations change.
You're missing all sorts of family functions.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know when you're going to see them again. You know, I don't have any issue, and you know what?
I don't either.
Like
I want the Boston Bruins out. So
the guy can do
I'm
whatever
happy
he
about
wants.
it.
You know, he's putting his family first, and family always comes first. So
right, I agree. You know, I'm going back to the years ago.
When he played with a broken leg
No,
type
I'm
stuff.
talking about
there's-
Major
Oh,
League Baseball when what's the second baseman, good ball player, Daniel. Daniel
Murphy?
Yes, when Daniel Murphy went because his wife had a baby and he missed opening day or whatever for the Mets, and I thought, you know, I just at the time I had a problem with it. I said, you know, the bottom line is you make millions of dollars.
There's
Childbirth is blinking your eyes in modern
But it
times.
doesn't matter.
There's
Doesn't
nothing
matter.
on earth that would keep me from missing the birth of any of my children.
I'd have played.
I mean,
If I have an opportunity to leave and go, I'm gonna
here's
be
the
there.
thing.
I'd have played.
How many kids?
You'd have played?
I'd have played.
Oh my goodness!
I'd have been there for
but that's your
opening day.
choice, right?
And
That's
you
your
know what?
choice.
I would
I
tell
just
your
said, you know
daughter
what?
or your son.
I've got a 7-figure income, and my kid is going to live the life of royalty because of what I do for a living. I owe it to the fans to be there because I make 7
You don't
figures.
owe it to the fans.
You don't owe it
That's
to
the way
your
I
wife
look at
to
it.
be there?
Yeah,
I am there.
Your wife is
I
more
am there.
important. I'm
No,
sorry.
we'll
you're,
be there.
You're at the game and your wife's
My wife's
screaming.
living a hell of a life. Let me tell you something.
And the
Good for her.
first guy that your son or daughter sees is going to be some doctor instead of you.
And they're going to remember that and point that
No,
out.
they
later.
will. But you
Oh, they
remember
will.
that.
You'll remember.
I'll
Your
see
wife,
the video.
Your wife will remember
I'll
it
see
and
the
hold it
video.
against you forever.
I'll see the video. I'm
No,
sorry.
listen,
Certain jobs. I'm sorry. Certain jobs.
It's a game. It's baseball. It's not like you're
That's not a
standing on the
game.
wall.
You're a million.
It's not like
It's
it's not like your job is to man the nuclear warheads of the country. You're playing a game for you can miss opening day.
Let me
Come
tell you
on.
this. Let me tell you this story. When my son was born the day before Thanksgiving. The New York Jets had not played on Thanksgiving in like 20 years, 30 years. It had been since the 80s since they played. My son was born in 2007. I had tickets in Dallas for the Jets Cowboys.
Now it's different now. You're playing with my emotional heartstrings here.
My ex-wife went into labor 3 weeks early. I was supposed to be able to go to the game, no problem. 3 weeks early, she went into labor. My son was supposed to come December 16th. He ended up coming the day before Thanksgiving, November 21st. You know, I did not get on that plane and go to Dallas. I stayed in Vegas with my wife while my son was born. I'm sorry. My first and only, and at the time I didn't know it was going to be my only child, but the only kid I have, my firstborn, I wasn't missing that for anything.
Looking back, you made the right decision. I'd probably try to finagle a way to get her to go into labor on the plane. Like,
you know what?
Do you guys? I'd ask like Southwest. Hey, do you guys deliver babies? Like,
I didn't want my son born in Dallas.
I still have a slight. I wish I would have had something on the day my daughter was born. I still have a slight problem with my left pinky because my wife squeezed my hand so hard.
Oh yeah.
To this day.
Well,
so I mean, if I wouldn't have been there, I would never have had that problem.
Everything going right is fine. I'm glad I was there for my son's birth, but it's the things that what if something went wrong? I would want to be there.
No,
that's
and like I said, I'm not going to hold it against. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you are. You're holding it against him.
Well, yeah, I did. Okay, I did. That's all there is to it. You know how many people would love to be the starting second baseman for the New York Mets on opening day? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And you know how many players, if you went down the minor league system and said, "Hey, your wife's having a baby, you can start today, or you can stay in Double-A." Believe me,
changing the circumstances.
I am.
Different.
I am, but I'm still saying in a lot of cases because he's got the job locked up and he's an all-star, he can afford to do that. Other players would say,
well, didn't he earn that though? He earned that, right?
Okay, you're right, but I'm saying a lot of other players that are just barely getting their starting job, they're not going to miss opening day.
That's on them.
Yeah, be better.
And you wouldn't have either. Okay, so anyways, real quickly before we leave the subject of the NHL, favorites in both conferences. I think the Golden Knights, even though they have been a little bit lethargic at times, they're undefeated in the bubble, and I would say that Western Conference, they obviously undefeated, but they're the odds-on favorite. What about in the East, Chris? Do you think it is the Tampa Bay Lightning? I mean,
They are in a street fight with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
They are, but the Columbus is playing really well.
I think here's the thing, though.
God almighty, Braden Point, and like I said, Victor
if
Hedman. This team is so
Tampa
talented.
gets through Columbus, and I think they will. They have the confidence that they could beat this team. That's kind of like their Achilles heel. Remember, they were swept. You called it. You called it last year. Well, The Blue Jackets you're the only radio person I've heard in the entire world that predicted the Blue Jackets would beat the Lightning last year. If they get through them, nobody's going to beat them in the East.
I don't think so.
They were my pick originally. And you know what's funny? I love the Blue Jackets. I love Seth Jones. Maybe my favorite player in the NHL. One of them, for sure. If Tampa gets through them, and like I said, I think they will, they'll get through Boston. They'll get through Philly. Yeah. They'll get through the Islanders. They'll get through the Capitals. Nobody's going to beat them over a 7-game series in the East. They were my pick to win the Stanley Cup before the playoffs started. I still feel that way.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, they match up so good against the Knights as well, Chris.
Yeah.
It's a really
Vegas,
bad matchup.
Sign me up for Vegas and Tampa.
Yeah, I think I'd be a hell of a series. So I think we're in agreement there. We'll take a quick break. I want to come back. I do want to talk about the NBA playoff picture. The Portland Trailblazers, man, really impressive. They bounced the Grizzlies, who finished within four. They finished within 4 games of the 8th seed. So they had it would have been the best of 2 games, provided Memphis had to beat them twice. But Portland is a formidable foe. I think LA will beat them. We'll talk about it later, but I think that Portland is a team. LeBron James, one thing, has never, ever in his career been bounced out of the first round of the playoffs. I think if there was ever a chance to happen, it would be this year. We'll be right back.
This, if you don't like the facts, take your ass back to bed. Fact this.
Yeah, it's a fact. Out of 10 FBS college football conferences, 4 have opted out of the season. 5 say they will play, and 1 is yet to be determined. That's my response to this whole thing. Let me tell you, this is a look at a rundown as of yesterday what's going on. In the ACC, they're going to have an 11-game football schedule, 10 conference, 1 non-conference, and they begin play the week of September 7th. Okay, then you've got the Big Ten. The Big Ten will not play football this fall. The conference postponed all fall sports. The Big Ten is looking into playing football and sports in the spring. Very interesting. We'll talk about that. The Big 12, they're going to have a 10-game football schedule, 9 conference, 1 non-conference, with conference games starting on September 26th. All non-conference games must be completed before September 26th. All competition will start after September 1st, whatever that means. The Southeastern Conference is going to have a 10-game schedule, 10 conference, 0 non-conference. They'll start on September 26th. Pac-12 also has postponed the fall football season and all fall sports through the end of the calendar year. It is considering whether fall sports can be played after January 1st, 2021 or not. The American Football Conference, 12-game football schedule, 8 conference, up to 4 non-conference, and they'll begin play on September 19th. Conference USA is to be determined. They still have not decided whether they're playing or not. We heard last week the MAC, the Mid-American Conference, was the first to postpone all fall sports for this coming season. The Mountain West also postponed all fall sports. As we know, the conference is exploring feasibility of rescheduling fall sports for the spring. And the Sun Belt Conference will have a 12-game football schedule, 8 conference, up to 4 non-conference games. And they're talking about starting right after Labor Day weekend. The first conference to start
Big
will
12,
be the Sun Belt.
Sun Belt?
Yeah,
I just saw TCU was going to play SMU
it's a
for
cluster.
the Iron Skillet.
The question is this all a bunch of crap, or are we going to see actual college football
We'll see.
this year?
We'll see college football because the SEC is stubborn and it's being allowed for them to make their own decisions. So we'll see.
ACC's stubborn too. Dabo Sweeney was on yesterday saying it's safer for them to play to not play, and that philosophy I didn't get.
Here's the thing. He may not be wrong.
He may not be wrong.
Because here's the thing. It's not feasible for the Mountain West. It's not feasible for the MAC. Big 12?
Not feasible for the Pac-12. They've got their players forming unions.
Well, it's the haves and the have-nots. It's a story that's as old as time that if you have the resources to be able to do something, you can do it. And that's what the ACC, the SEC have. They have the resources. Now, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten also have the resources, but I don't know. You look at the region of the country that most of the schools are in and where the conferences are.
Here's the problem.
Those decisions become political. So now the college football season has become a political thing where those states and those regions that want to minimize COVID and minimize the impact and get back to, making money as usual, those regions will do so. And those that are more into politicizing this and fear-mongering, I would say, I guess, are going to not play because they want the messaging to be clear that this is a serious virus.
First of all, Conference USA, I think, is about to opt out. They're waiting till the last minute, but word is they're going to opt out. Look at the markets they play in.
Yeah.
A lot of that's the same area as
but much smaller schools. Here's the problem for the Mountain West and why I kind of felt all along that the Mountain West would have an issue. What's the state to the west of us?
Cali.
They just passed 600,000 cases yesterday. That's more than almost every country on the planet in terms of cases. Then you have the fact that what other team is in the conference that's heavy travel, extremely isolated? Hawaii. You could not have a football team traveling to the state of Hawaii to play a football game.
Yeah, we were due to go to Hawaii this year, too.
Because Hawaii, of all the states in the country, probably, if it got to a point where it was bad there, it would be uncontrollable because you don't have the resources on the island to combat this, which is why their governor was hardcore. I mean, people have to quarantine when they go there.
Yeah.
So there was little option for Hawaii. The state of California, you have 3 schools, and California is clearly doing everything wrong in terms of handling this. And I'm not blaming their government. I'm just talking about the people in California in general are doing everything wrong in terms of handling this, especially Los Angeles County.
Yeah, a lot of free people there.
A lot of
that
dumbasses.
that don't abide by rules in normal circumstances.
But we still can go on and on about the numbers. I don't believe.
I also think that the players unionizing and their attempts to unionize,
I think
a much bigger piece to do than COVID did. In my opinion, I think that was the straw that tipped.
To opt out of the season.
Because if college players make legitimate demands, and they have a leg to stand on because of COVID, where sitting out was opting out was an option. If they make legitimate demands that cost money, the NCAA and college football in general is not built to withstand that. It can withstand COVID. They can afford COVID, but players saying we want this opportunity to say this. We want health and safety protocols. We want guarantees. We want these officials.
They want to be stipend.
We want to be heard. We want to be paid for this. When they start saying things like that, that's when the powers that be say, well, it's not really worth it to go forward with this. So we'll just cancel the season. And you see most of the conferences, like I said, that had players unionizing were quick to say, all of a sudden, which is what baffled me, was it went from conference games only, and I'm not going to say that the MAC influenced the Pac-12 and the Big Ten now. All of a sudden, you talked to your medical professionals before the MAC, and you said non-conference games only.
I think the decisions were already made. Caleb.
Absolutely,
yeah.
and that saying that the MAC influenced it and started the spread, I guess, of the cancellation of college football is ridiculous. I think the players unionizing and saying we want this, and then the powers that be saying, well, that's going to cost, and then saying, well, it's not worth it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to cancel the season altogether. We're going to push it back to spring so this all fizzles out, and there's no more leg to stand on for our players. They can't use COVID as an opt-out tool because you can't opt out. You're under contract. If you don't play, you're off scholarship, and that's the way that they want it to be as the powers that be in college football. You are playing, and we're holding you hostage on a scholarship. You're going to do what I say. You're going to play when I say, and then you're going to graduate and move on. We're not going to care about you more. That's the way that it's supposed to go. But with COVID, there has to be some sort of opt-out clause
100%.
because you can't force people to play during a pandemic. So, I mean, the players won't have that leg to stand on in the spring, and I guarantee you that Those that want to will do spring football, and
It'll be interesting because, again, the safety issue comes in. I don't think you can play football in the spring and turn around and play again in the fall. And what are you going to do? Reorganize and make football now a spring sport? You just can't do it for the safety factor that football, of all the sports, safety comes into play the most, and that's 2 seasons in 1 year. In 1 calendar year, I don't see it happening. Listen, real quickly, Caleb, before we move on, S&B with C, we got the Raiders in full bloom out there in Henderson. They're at camp right now. Going forward, it looks like there is going to be an NFL season that we can see right now. One of the things we talked about a little bit during the break, and we talked about right before the break as well, Javen White, UNLV, invited to Raiders camp and looking better and better each week, a guy that just very well might make this team.
And it's going to be hard for him because the no preseason deal, like not a lot of opportunity to showcase his talents on the field. But based on the way that he's been getting praised from Gruden and from defensive coordinator, it's like he might have a shot to make it as a special teams guy, which is kind of where we thought he fit in because of his motor. And that's what Gruden's really been saying, is that his motor. And it might be a good thing that he's from Vegas and the team moved to Vegas. That might help him get a little nudge because he's a local guy. The story's there. And I think Gruden understands the media enough to say this would be good to have this guy on the roster. So Javen White thing's working in his favor. I'm glad to see the guy succeed on that level. Other news, Mariota looking good, like every bit of the best backup in the NFL from all accounts right now. He may be a starter in the league. I don't think he's going to start with Derek Carr. That's just my personal opinion. I think Derek Carr is coming off of one of his best statistical seasons, and I think the team around him is better. Derek Carr gets a shot with Henry Ruggs, which is one of the highlights of camp so far, was a deep shot to Henry Ruggs, one-handed catch by Ruggs where he just absolutely rose a 56-yarder. Derek Carr put it on the money, which is something that the offense didn't have last year.
If he put it on the money, why did he have to make a one-handed catch?
For style points. It was style points.
Because
he was so, it was just a perfectly placed ball. It was style points. A touchdown, 56-yarder.
If Derek Carr's the starting quarterback for the Raiders all year, they're going 7-9.
You're ridiculous. And this is a lot of. There's been a lot made about.
I'm giving him credit.
There's been a lot made out about Derek Carr, saying that he's unduly criticized and people, hating on him. And you're one of those people. And I think the Wiz next door is one of those people as well. But Derek Carr doesn't deserve to be just downright hated.
I don't hate on him.
People are so critical of him.
I think he's a really good guy.
I think this year is one of the first years you're going to be able to measure. Okay, can he get it done? Because he has a team around him. Okay, like he has like I said, and this play with Henry Ruggs is not just a good play for camp. It's something that the offense was missing, that they thought they would have in Antonio Brown last year, and that was a train wreck. But now having that deep shot in their offense, because one of the biggest issues that they had was getting to the red zone and not being able to score. Well, if you score from outside of the red zone, then you don't have to worry about your inefficiencies in the red zone. You have opportunities for big plays instead of trying to milk it down. Jacobs is feeling healthy. He talked about his shoulder and not really feeling any pain. He sat out of practice last week, I think one of the practices, but says his shoulder feels fine, so he's going to be healthy.
They're definitely going to need
his second year. Yeah, so it's going to be great. I mean, we'll see what the Raiders have. I think Derek Carr's the guy, and I think the Raiders have a playoff team going into the season, but we'll see how things fold out.
Caleb just used the word great with the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think, okay. I'll leave it at that. Listen, let's take our next break. We're going to come back. We'll talk about NBA playoffs. We will also talk about Major League Baseball. You're listening to Outta Line on Fox Sports Radio. Outta Line, Fox Sports Radio. Every Sunday, 8 to 9, 98.9 FM, 1340 AM, flagship of the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm Brian Feldman, here with Caleb Herring and the guy behind the Wheels of Steel, Chris Magnum Chapman, in the break room right now, manning the all the social media stuff.
Nobody beats the Wiz.
Spencer Ostrowski, we appreciate you in there, brother. Get him on the line here in a second if he wants to call in. Is Spencer with us? Yeah. Oh, what's going on, Spencer?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. You feeling healthy?
I feel great. My eyes are not inflated. It was an allergy for Chris. He kind of threw some shade at me in the beginning of the show as if I'm not some sort of clean person, but I think I'm allergic to oregano.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
That was me. I suggested
me.
washing pillows.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, But yeah, oregano. Wow, who knew?
An allergy to oregano. Don't smoke oregano, man. It's not good for you.
Yeah.
Someone sold you some fake
bad stuff, man.
Yeah.
Put that stuff on your pizza, not in your lungs, for God's sakes. Come on, Wiz. Wiz, we'll let you chime in real quickly about the Raiders. You heard Caleb. You heard what Chris and I said. We know your feeling on Derek Carr. What's the Raiders' record going to be this year?
I predict they'll probably win 6 games. It's just the defense isn't enough, in my opinion. Like, we had an MVP in Khalil Mack like a few years ago, or Defensive Player of the Year, I should say, and we were still the worst defense in the league. Our linebacking core is probably top 5 in the league now, but still, the hole in cornerback is going to be way too bad in a division full of some of the best receivers in the NFL.
That's going to be interesting. I'll tell you one thing the Raiders will be is they'll be really fast this year. That is a very quick team, and I think Jacobs is going to be the key to this team. This kid, if he's healthy, he can make Derek Carr look better than he is, and I believe that wholeheartedly. A good running back can always do that. Listen, really quickly, moving on, one of the things you guys talked about, I know you were on Jose Vellante Straight Bet Sports, you and Mags yesterday, right after the Cormier fight. I'll tell you what, I my feeling on the UFC. I'm a hypocrite because I enjoy watching, and I'm just not a big Dana White fan. I think that I'll bitch and complain until this guy pays his fighters. But last night with Stipe Miocic and Daniel Cormier, Part 3. I mean, what a great fight for a guy that's over 40 years old in Cormier, one of the greatest fighters in history. I think 5 or 6 title defenses. I know he's tied with, I think it's 6 heavyweight title fights. What is it for Cormier? I can't remember, but I know he's tied with Randy Couture for the most heavyweight defenses in the UFC history. But what a fight!
Miocic has 6 defenses.
He has 6 defenses,
which is the tied for the record with
Randy Couture.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a guy though in Cormier who's in his 40s, and the one thing that he has done every time he has stepped in the octagon is he gives his all, and he always gives a show. And I'll tell you, if you saw earlier in the fight, he literally got poked straight in the eye, like a finger directly in your eye. I don't know how you fight after that. If you've ever been poked or had a scratch cornea or something, man, it is debilitating. It really is. And Cormier, I'll tell you what, fought right up till the end. Did take a beating in the last couple rounds, but pretty impressive. What did you guys think? Wiz, what did you think of that fight last night?
Yeah, the thing is you would think the eye poke would change it, but then you start thinking, okay, you're not going to get disqualified. It comes out to a warning. But still, when you look at his eye, he couldn't see out of it. It wasn't an excuse. His eye was literally shut closed. And he also got saved by the bell, too. I mean, I think it was the end of the second where he was, holding on for dear life, and it came down to, the last few seconds where for a second it looked like they were going to stop the fight at all. But the fact that he went out there, I think he was really disappointed. I think he really had a better chance than he did. And it was a close fight. I will give it that. I think they were tied going into the last one, although the scoring didn't exactly say that. But at least in my opinion, it's a pretty, I guess, sad way to go out, but still, he's still one of the best fighters to ever step into the octagon.
I'll agree with you. I mean, the theory in fighting is if something works once, use it all night long. And the story of that fight was the overhand right and the straight right that Miocic kept throwing at him. I mean, there was no defense for it. And like I said, fighting, that's the thing. When you realize you got something, the other guy's not defending it, and you keep doing it. And I was surprised that Cormier hung in there. He was saved by the bell in the second, but he recovered enough to stay in the fight and even inflict some more damage. Really impressive. And like I said, hats off to this guy, one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, one of the greatest overall. And they said the winner of this fight would be able to say he's the greatest heavyweight of all time. You know what, Daniel, I know you were bummed. You left there looking like you wanted to rip somebody's head off, but the truth of the matter is the second best of all time, and there's a lot of people in the world. To say you're the second best in the world, is that really that bad?
No, it's not bad at all.
I mean, second best in the world, pretty good. Let's transition real quick over. I want to talk about the NBA playoffs. We don't have a lot of time. Caleb, that first round you saw yesterday, just an incredible game by Lillard. McCollum, 29 points. I mean, he was 4 for 4 with Ja Morant as his primary defender in the fourth. Yeah. And I'm not saying Morant's the best defender, but Ja Morant is really skilled and very athletic.
Ja Morant was exhausted. Let's be like down the stretch there. And CJ McCollum, who had a quiet 29 points in that game, was ready to go in the fourth quarter, and it was pretty much whoever Ja was guarding, they were going to go after. So, but yeah, I mean, Portland has always had, or at least for 4 to 5 years now, has had that 2-guard tandem that's really unguardable. They're small, but they're really unguardable on one side of the ball. But the problem is the defensive side of the ball. We've seen throughout this playoffs, they haven't played any defense in the bubble games, especially even in these last 2 games. You had Karis LeVert absolutely destroying them, getting to the rim whenever he wanted to. Ja Morant had his career high, and he basically was in the paint, lived in the paint. So in the first round of the playoffs now, after this exhausting, grueling 8-game stretch for you guys, you're going to be playing LeBron James and Anthony Davis, one of the most paint-dominant teams.
I understand that.
So it's going to be hard for them. I'm not saying they're not going to pose problems for the Lakers, but It's going to be hard to stop LeBron from getting to the rim if you can't stop Ja Morant and Karis LeVert.
Well, it's defensively without Beal. Okay, now
without Beal or Ariza.
Ariza, yeah. And you got Caruso, who's definitely proved over the years he has had success defending on ball screens, which is something that really you're going to have to do well against the Portland Trailblazers. But
it's just about chasing them off the 3-point line. I mean, I don't expect any guard from the Lakers to be able to keep up with Damian Lillard. That's unexpected.
But just slow him down.
Yeah, slow him down. Don't let him shoot threes. Like if they're counting by 2, if he's going in there with JaVale McGee and Anthony Davis,
he's got the range of Steph Curry.
I would, and that's how KCP I think would be the guy that I would want on him the most. Pressure him, make him go by you, hedge up on the screens, and then make him go to the rim. If he goes to the rim 20 times a night and he beats you that way, then he deserves to win the game. But I mean, the matchup I'm really interested to see in this first round. There's 2 actually. I want to see what Luka Doncic is going to do in his first playoffs against the Clippers. I mean, tough draw there, but then also OKC and Houston.
That should be it. That's going to be that is going to be the best matchup.
And I think without Russell Westbrook, however many games he misses with his knee strain or whatever it is, I think that's going to determine who wins that one, because I don't think James Harden has enough to do it by himself.
Not alone. No,
against OKC, and the way Chris Paul's been playing, he deserves to be mentioned in the MVP race because of just what he's been able to do in Oklahoma City.
He has definitely elevated that team's play, and no question about it. Well, the Lakers, back to that series real quick, they're minus 460 to win the series. They're minus 220 in Tuesday night's Game 1 opener. Trailblazers plus 370, heavy underdogs, and like I said, LeBron James has never lost in the first round of the NBA playoffs before. If there was ever a time for that to happen, I do think it could be this year. But I agree. I think the Lakers are going to win this series, but I think the Blazers will give them a very tough first round. And you know what? For the Lakers, they need this, because right now, looking down the road to get past the LA Clippers,
the Clippers are the team to beat.
They need to really get some seasoning under their belt to play this Clippers team, because I don't know how you're getting by the LA Clippers right now.
And the thing I'm interested with the Lakers is to see what they do rotation-wise, because this last games in the bubble, the last few games, they've thrown a lot of bodies out there. I mean, Waiters has been getting minutes. Caruso's been getting a lot of minutes. Like, I don't know how Cook's been getting minutes. I don't know what the rotation's going to look like when they go to the bench, how tight they're going to get with it.
I just think you just got to keep rotating in fresh bodies. That's all you're going to be able to do against this team.
I mean, that might be it, but I think as the playoffs go, every team will tighten their rotation to 7-8 guys if they need to. And I just see I don't know who those 8 guys are going to be for the Lakers.
Lakers defensively, that's where they're going to have problems when they get against a team like the Clippers. Listen, we're out of time. Major League Baseball, again, I mentioned earlier, the St. Louis Cardinals. How about playing 53 games in 44 days? That started yesterday with a doubleheader against the White Sox. They won both games 5-1, 6-3. 7 innings for the doubleheaders, which is pretty interesting, but they hadn't played in 16 days. And the Reds, did I mention another team that COVID-19? Cincinnati Reds just has somebody test positive. They are now the 3rd team to leave, to have games postponed due to COVID-19. Baseball's got all kinds of problems. Listen, I want to thank you for joining the show today. Thank my co-host, Caleb Herring, Chris Magnum Chapman. Mr. Ostrowski in the other room. I'm Brian Feldman. This is Out of Line. We're here every Sunday, 8 to 9, Fox Sports Radio, 98.9 FM, 1340 AM, flagship of the Golden Knights. Great guest next week. Make sure you're here. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.